بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا زدنا علما. اللهم إنا نسألك الإخلاص والقبول وأن تنفعنا اللهم بما نقول. اللهم آمين وبعد. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to tajweed 101 course, simple step-by-step tajweed course that enables you inshallah to learn how to read the Quran properly and understand its meaning. Welcome, my name is Maghfira and you are watching Maghfira 101, the place to learn and know and understand how to read the Quran properly, inshallah, and understand its meaning. And today, inshallah, we're going to continue something that related to the last lesson, which is about the elevation and lowering lesson, which is about the lowering and the elevation characteristics. So let's go to it. So the last lesson we understood that we have the Arabic letters in terms of a sound direction. So the sound inside the mouth, we have two directions of it. It may be directed towards the roof of the mouth, which is called elevated or musta'liya, and the sound can be outside, which is lowered, so the sound can be declined outside the mouth, which is lowered. So after understanding this lesson, or after understanding the sound direction, we have to understand now the concept of heaviness and lightness. So you may hear that a lot. We have heavy letters and light letters. We have something called heaviness and some other things called lightness. So التفخيم والترقيق, this is another concept related to the previous one. So let's see what is this. So the Arabic letters, whether it is heavy or light, it may be one of these three. It may be always heavy. Always heavy means that we have to make the sound to be heavy, usually always be heavy, like خص ضغط قض. And we may have some letters that are sometimes being heavy and some other times being light, like alif and lam and ra. And we may have some letters that are always letters that are the rest of letters that other than the alif and lam and ra on the special cases of being heavy, and the heavy letters that are usually being heavy, like خص ضغط قض. So we have the Arabic letters, maybe usually heavy, usually light, and sometimes being heavy and some other times being light. The concept of heaviness, what is heaviness? It is the letter fatness. So the mouth is filled with its echo due to doing two things. Number one, narrowing the throat, okay? Number two, sound elevation towards the roof of the mouth. So the heaviness, it is to do three things. Number one, elevate the back of the tongue from the deeper part, from the posterior edge of the tongue. You have to elevate it, okay, to narrow the throat. The second thing is to direct the sound to be towards the roof of the mouth, which means we have to do elevation characteristic. And the last thing, it is to keep the sound echo to be inside the mouth. So by applying these three things, or these three steps, elevating the back of the tongue by narrowing the throat, and elevating the sound towards the roof of the mouth, and keeping the sound echo to be inside, by doing these three things, by this you guarantee the letter to be properly heavy, or properly heavy sound. Okay, so the heaviness, it is the letter fatness. So you feel the sound is fat, like fatness sound. So the reason for making this fatness is the sound is filling the mouth, or the mouth is filled with the echo of the sound. And for doing this, we have to do these two things. Narrowing the throat, and this is by elevating the back of the tongue to allow the sound to pass in a lesser speed, or in a lower distance between the tongue and the roof of the mouth. Okay, the second thing is elevating the sound towards the roof of the sound, which is doing the elevation characteristic, and keeping the sound echo to be inside. So if you have, for example, bod, the proper way of making bod, or even qaf as the example shown here, qaf, the proper way of doing it, number one, elevate the back of the tongue. So qa, 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 try to press. If you have any problem with elevating the back of the tongue, just press here. Put your hands here, or put your finger here and press here to force the tongue to be up. Force means to press, not just touch. Because when we teach this technique, some may think that we have to touch. No, we have to press here with the strength. So you elevate the back of the tongue, you force the tongue to be elevated. So this is the first thing to do, little qaf properly. So elevate the back of the tongue from the posterior part of it, and keeping the sound to be elevated. So you have to imagine that the sound is going upward towards the roof of the mouth. by studying the characteristics of the Arabic letters, it gives you a deeper look to the letter, and it give you a deeper understanding to apply the letters. So when you focus on the sound, whether it is pushed outside or whether it's inside, that will help you to make the sound very easily, and don't like have so many difficulties on applying this heavy sounds, because from the common mistakes that, or from the common problematic issues that I face, is to make the sound heavy. Okay, so to make the sound heavy in a super easy way, just press here to make the sound to make the tongue elevated. This is the first thing. The second thing is, imagine the sound direction and keep it to be towards the roof of the mouth. Oh, oh, oh. And the third thing, try to make sure the sound echo is inside. Don't be busy to push it outside. Qa, qa, qa. By this, you elevate, yes, the back of the tongue, but you push the sound outside. We need to make sure that we do the elevation, do the isti'la. We elevate the sound towards the roof of the mouth. So, qa, 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 like this. The same for dad and ra even. These two letters are so hard because it's use the tip of the tongue. So you may think that, or some may think that, pushing the sound outside due to the tip of the tongue. But the reality that we have to do the same three things. Never ever use the lips. Using the lips weakens the letter. It's called ishmam. So you use just the elevation or heaviness. It is to elevate the back of the tongue, no interference for lips at all. Okay, so interfering the lips here will weaken the sound, or weaken the characteristic of heaviness, or will weaken the heaviness for the letter. So do, 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 and instead of do, do, do. Even some do it as a do, do, do. Elevate the back, but pushing the sound outside. So don't push the sound outside. Keep the sound to be inside. Okay? So this is التفخيم. While الترقيق, which is lightness, it is the letter thinness. The letter thinness, so the mouth isn't filled with its echo. Okay? So it is exactly the opposite of the previous lesson. It is exactly the opposite for the previous lesson. Okay, so we don't have to elevate the back of the tongue. We don't have to direct the sound towards the roof of the mouth. We don't have to keep the sound echo to be inside. If you do one of these three things for the light letter, the sound will be touching the heavy sound. Like sometimes I see some sisters read it as a for example, they do it as law for light lamb. They do it, for example, as bo, 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 bo. So keeping the echo sound inside the mouth, leading the sound to be heavy, okay, or improperly done. So make sure to allow the sound to be decline outside. So الترقيق, it is related to the lowering characteristic, okay, and this thinness of the sound letter due to not narrowing the throat. As you see here, this throat is wider because there's no elevation of the tongue, and there's no elevation for the sound to be towards the roof of the mouth. Like for example, ka, la, a. You see, the throat is opened wider, and I have seen it a lot. They narrow the throat so the sound a bit harder to be light by the lightness it needed. And this especially for the sisters from maybe Bangladesh and India, and some sisters that are used this way on normal speech. So make sure not to use this part and to make this part wide as you can, because by making this wide, you by this allow this letter to be light properly. Okay, so this is الترقيق. جزاكم الله خيرا for your watching. Catch you the next lesson inshallah. سبحانك اللهم ربنا بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Of the heaviness, inshallah, on the next lesson we will continue the letters that are usually light and the letters that are usually that are sometimes being heavy and some other times being light.